Welcome to this panel, which is how to find an artist to match your vision. When it comes to the world of sequential art, that's comics and manga and anything else kind of in the graphic novel area. As we've talked before on some of the other panels, making a manga, a comic is not a one person job. Oftentimes it can be one person, but sometimes it's one, two, three. Sometimes it's teams of almost 8 to 10 people. It just really depends on your project. And if you are someone who has this amazing, groundbreaking, idea, you're basically the next Masashi Kishimoto or the next Robert Kirkman. You'll need someone to help complement your amazing story, and that's where finding a great artist comes into place. So with me, I have three amazing creatives in the room, and they're going to introduce yourselves, and then we're going to go ahead and get into the panel proper. So whoever feels comfortable first, go ahead and introduce yourselves to the crowd for people who are not familiar with you.
No problem at all. So hello, everybody. My name is RJ Atkinson. I am a writer, and I'm also the creator of the series The Seventh Kingdom, Fukushi no Koku. I'm also the CEO of RPX Media Production. And yes.
I was like, there's so much more, but that's okay. But hello again. I am Tashi J. I am the co-founder, co-CEO, and writer and lead editor for Midnight Comics. And we have a lot of different titles, so I'm not going to list them.
Okay. My name is Patrick. I am the founder, creator, and CEO of Studio Maho, and I am the writer for God Punch as well as the series Blade Titans.
Ooh. And by the way, everyone, if you have not taken some time, I'm sure we'll have some time to talk about their creative works later, but you haven't taken the time to read God Punch from Studio Maho. It's amazing. Of course, from Midnight Comics, you guys have so many amazing works, but of course, I'll just shout out some of my favorites. The Gray, which is coming, I think another issue's coming out, as well as The Unbeloved. And then, Seventh Kingdom, they have a preview available on Webtoons. So if you're a Webtoons reader, you can definitely check that out.
She keeps teasing us.
I know, a little teaser, a little drop in there. So the cool thing about everyone in this space is that before you guys released previews of your projects or your projects proper, everything started as an idea. And I know everyone in this space is a writer. So when it came down to, idealizing, conceptualizing your product, when was the moment where you're like, okay, I have this vision for my story. How did you pick kind of what direction you were going to go for the art? Before you actually started looking for an artist, how did you know what art direction you wanted to go in?
See, the thing is with me, a lot of people ask me like how Walla and I even got connected. And the truth is, I pick artists the way I go shopping. Now, here's what I mean. Bear with me with this analogy. I am not someone who, when I go shopping, I have to look and think and turn it and like put it in. Like if I have to do that, I don't want it. If it's not like if I'm not like, as soon as I walk in the shop, I don't see it from the other side of the room and like walk straight to it, then it's a no. But that being said, I did not have a specific style overtly in mind, but I spent time looking on Instagram, scouting different types of talent. And I also had an assistant who helped me. And if I got like an immediate reaction when I saw the art, then I tried to go for different types of art styles too, just to have a broad array of connections to different styles. But if it got an immediate like yes for me, then I went with that gut feeling in terms of deciding the artist. But honestly, to this day, even when I write, I told somebody the characters are like a blur in my head, which is probably hard for some people to believe because of how detailed it is. It's all a blur in my head. I don't actively think about what they look like when I'm writing. So
that's actually a really unique approach to it. I like that. For Pat or Natasha, how did you even have like a concept or an idea of what your characters looked like before you actually started hunting for an artist?
Oh, so I definitely had an idea as far as how I wanted my characters to look. Whenever I would, pretty much, write the chapters out for the manga, I would, anytime I would introduce a new character, I would describe them in detail. I would try and picture it in my head because I wanted any artist that I ended up working with to be able to capture my vision. So it's kind of crazy that, I'm on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it, looking for artists, and Allende, ends up reaching out to me. And so I take one look at his Instagram, and I was like, this is it. This is gonna work. And so I hired him to do a commission, just some concept art, just to kind of see, what his vision would look like and if it would align. And when he sent it to me, I was like, "You're my guy. We're gonna do this." And that was in 2019, and we've been locked in ever since.
I love that. And then, Natosha, for you, how did you? And of course, I know it's a team there at Midnight Comics. But how did you and Lloyd, your partner in crime, how did you guys do you guys had a specific idea for an artist, or were you like kind of more more detailed end of the spectrum?
And I think probably closer to what he said is I know what the characters look like in my head. I'm the person that's like, when I read, I see the story. Mm-hmm. And so not only do I already kind of know what I want the character to look like, I usually write it all down as well. So it's like, I know this character has hair like this, is this skin tone, is this height, is this big or small, or, stuff like that. And then on the added bonus with Lloyd being an artist, even though he's not one of our sequential artists, he will usually draw the concept. Mm-hmm. And then from there, we have a specific art style in mind for that story. All of our stories, which is why some of them aren't done yet, because we haven't seen an art style or can't afford the artist that has that art style that fits what we're looking for that story. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of take a similar approach when we find someone that's like, you fit, is we have a test page done. We have them do a test page and send it to us. And if we're like, okay, yeah, that does definitely fit, then that's the artist we go with. So like Soul has had 2 different artists at this point. And the first artist was good. But when the current artist sent the page, it said, that's it. That right there is it. Mm-hmm. The colors, the lines, the perspective, the way he does perspective is so perfect for that story. And then the great artist, I cannot lose him. Ever. Ever. He's brilliant.
Yeah.
I actually really enjoy the different approaches to kind of figuring out kind of where your story was going to go, because as comic book manga creators, we're aware that 50% of the product that you make in the end is that art. So I love Robbie, how you're just like, I don't care what it looks like, but I know it when I see it. And then on the other spectrum, we have, I know exactly in the movie that's in my head what it's supposed to look like, and I'm looking for someone to get as close to that as possible. So just, for the people watching, I feel like when it comes down to your vision, you should definitely find someone who matches, whether it's like that immediate spark, that love at first sight kind of thing, or if it's someone that's matching literally the vision that's in your head. There's definitely a lot of space in there. Piggybacking off of what you said earlier, Tasha, you bring up a really good point, which I'll pose the question to you guys. Another large part of making comics and manga is finances. Sometimes, especially when you are someone who's not artistically strong, finding an artist can be really difficult, not just finding someone who matches your vision or someone who appeals to you, but also your budget. What was you guys' approach to sticking within a budget or creating a budget? How did you find an artist that matched you financially?
Well, Walla in particular, I consider myself very blessed. Another element to this is Walla very much chose me. Like I chose Walla, Walla chose me. When we had our meeting, I was like, hey, I have this idea. And Walla was like, I'm down. And I was like, I didn't have to say very much. Walla was like, yeah, like we'd been waiting for years to work together. And so when I came back and was like, I'm ready, Walla was like, all right, say less. And so with the financing of it, really, I gave Walla the script first. And I gave Walla just space to breathe and read the script. And Walla came back and said, I got chills. All right, I'll charge you this. and then we'll see where we go from there. And I said, all right, cool. And I just created like a payment plan. Like, okay, I'll pay this amount down to get started, and we'll move forward. And when we hit a certain milestone, then this amount gets paid, and so on and so forth. But it's been very fluid, really. But that was kind of the blueprint that we originally had. Yeah.
And for the other two, how did you guys approach finding an artist through finances?
For us, it's really interesting because we have multiple artists,
Mm-hmm.
and I will say at the very least, it's really nice that a lot of artists these days are just the artist. So for most things, you don't have to find a penciler, then an inker, then the colorist. A lot of time, people have learned how to do at least all of the line art, and then you can maybe get a colorist. Or some people have learned how to do both, so that definitely helps. But yeah, when we first started, Lloyd had a pretty good job. So of course, with the way he does, he says, "While I have it, I'm going to throw it at you." So that helped get some stuff done. That job went away, and so we had to start thinking more strategically. And thankfully, we were able to make good deals with the artists that we do have, and afford it the way we could. But even so, like I said, there are still artists that we would like to use that we can't afford. And can I just say, first and foremost, please, whatever an artist tells you their prices, respect that price.
Yes.
Do you can afford it or not, please respect their price. Be kind and be respectful. And you just have to let someone know to say, hey, your price is your price. I can't do that right now. But either you go find someone else, or you're like, I will be back when I can. You really want that artist. And so I think we have at least one artist where we did have to do that with. And then we have another artist where the reason we haven't gotten started with her yet is because she's just busy. And so also please respect your artist's time. They have other things they're doing. So a lot goes into that. It's not just about your finances only. It's about your time, their time, and respecting the boundaries they set forward. So it's a lot of things go into finances other than just money.
Absolutely. Very good points. Oh, she's so smart. Pat, for you, how did you approach finding an artist within a budget, without a budget? Did you have a budget for your artist?
So initially, we didn't have a budget. I think whenever me and Allende first, met up, there were a lot of things just in regards to making comics that I was honestly ignorant about. So for me, it was a great experience just to kind of learn from him on how to do this the right way. So initially, he let me know his page rate, and I was like, I'll complete transparency. I don't have any money to pay that right now, so like I want to work with you, but I genuinely just don't have it, and like you said, respect the page rate, respect that price, and so, that's kind of what I told him. But I asked him, I was like, if you want to do this, then we can. I'm just being upfront with you. I would love to work with you. So it took a couple of days, and he decided, like, let's do it. Let's take a risk. And ultimately, we ended up working out an agreement where after, we would finish publishing the book and we would put it out there. Whatever sales we would make on the back end, that is what he would end up being compensated as the artist. And I would take my cut as the writer. And that's kind of how we were able to start producing our series, more efficiently. And so I think the big thing about us was we were on the same page about how we wanted to do it and how we could do it effectively. And that just worked for us.
I would like to note the importance of like the contracts when working with your artists and kind of looking about how you like what parameters you set, and even like profit sharing, like how you go about that. Something I was mindful of is I didn't want to pay Walla a certain amount and then the series go and make so much more, and Walla don't get to see any of that. So I have a clause in my contract that says like when we hit this milestone, retroactive profit sharing.
Right.
Just because your art brought this to life, so you're gonna get, like, if I eat, you're gonna eat. That's something else mentality I have.
I definitely agree with that, because even as a voice actor, when I do like audiobooks, that's sometimes the thing is that you get your pay per worked hour, but then you also on the back end you get a percentage off of those sales, and that just honestly it feels much nicer.
Yes.
We got to do our market adjustments, you know. the more money we make, the more money you make. We got to adjust. We got to make those adjustments, you know. We got to be fair.
Absolutely. And I think it's really important. The key piece here is communication, really being clear about, you know, it's making this book, making, you know, people like to use product, whatever it is, whatever you're making together, it is not just a creative partnership, but it's a business partnership. And you'll want to make sure whoever you're bringing on to your team is aware of, like, you know, where Pat came in and is just like, hey, I don't have a huge budget, or I don't have much budget, but I'd love to work with you. Or whether you're with Robbie and you're just like, hey, I can throw whatever you want, whatever your price is. It's just being transparent about where you're at. In my experience, I know that there's a creator out here. I'm so sorry, I cannot remember their name, but I met them at a convention, and they had mentioned that they loved an artist so much that they paid them when they picked their artist. They worked with this artist. Literally, they paid them a page. So they would save up for a page, and they would get a page done a month, or a page done a week. And it took him, I think he said it took him a year to get the book finished, because he was basically paying per page. But over time, he was really passionate about the book, and he really wanted the artist. So, you know, I think as long as you're very communicative and you're super passionate about what your book is, you know, it'll work out.
That's that strategy I was talking about.
Yeah, strategize. Another aspect of creating a book, we talked a little bit about, you know, just generally finding an artist, you know, in the marketplace, or, you know, putting your finances there. I actually picking back off specifically off of what you were saying, Robbie, about you didn't know what your book was going to look like, but you knew that when you found it, you're going to find it. In that same vein, your story, you know, you handed the script over, your artist got chills. What was it like, kind of basically entrusting your baby into somebody else and seeing how they were going to adapt these words into your world that you guys are creating together?
It is a wonder. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that, because like I may not know what my characters look like, but as a filmmaker, because I am a filmmaker, I know what the scene is supposed to look like, how it's supposed to be framed. I know the angle that I want, and I will have a description. When I write my script, even if the character is described as a stick man, right? The background is that's something that Walla has said that they enjoy working with me so much, is that even though to me it's like I'm still amazed when I see how much Walla does. Walla's like, no, but like you're very detailed. Like it's very easy to picture what you mean. And so when I give this over to Walla, it's typically what I expected or better. And it's kind of like, what I love about it is when we talk about perspective, right? If you say like this character points at this, Walla will take a simple like person pointing and we'll do some weird perspective where the finger is like in your face and then like everything's all the way back. Like, you know, it's kind of like being a director and trusting the interpretation of a character to an actor. Because that when I directed my short last year and it premiered at Bear to Life Film Festival, I had to learn that directing is not about speaking to the actor about what they're supposed to be doing. It's the analogy is you have an idea of a painting, you have an idea of the colors you want, you bring in a painter and they do their rendition of what that color is going to look like and where it's going to be placed and how it looks. And that is the collaborative nature. And so it was great it was a bit nerve-wracking to hand the script over, but then it was very rewarding because it wasn't just Walla, because it's a team of Tagline 9 is comprised of like 9 people or so, 7 to 9 people. But I work with the 2 main illustrators. Walla's the lead, and then there's another named Ali, and both of them were just like, oh yes, over and over again, yes. And I was like, wow, you guys liked it that much. And for me, that hit a certain way because I had an experience, actually, if you don't mind me sharing. I actually was in a Discord server for a very prestigious institution. And I remember submitting my script to this Discord server and they took turns telling me how bad my writing was. They sat down for an hour picking it up, but like, oh no, you know, your script isn't formatted properly. And I remember one girl even said, oh, it's okay. You know, when I make bad films, I just reshoot them. You know, the film had already been shot at this point. She said that. So like I had already had people kind of tell me that my writing was not good. So to hand this over to the artist and they were just like, we're going to ride this to the moon and back. I was like, all right, it felt really good, you know, but it's amazing seeing their interpretation, and I enjoy it. And I enjoy the collaborative nature of just the tweaks and things that we do back and forth.
And that's why you won at a film festival anyway.
Right. Look, and that's
delicious.
That's the interesting thing about it is, like, you know, art is very much based on the opinion of like each person, you know, and so that is where Walla and I have kind of just made up our mind. Like, even though people really like what they see, we've both kind of said, like, it's not about how people respond, it's about the fun. And that's something we both prioritize. I told Walla, I used to be a teacher before I was a filmmaker. Another fun fact. Before I was a filmmaker, I used to be a teacher. I worked in the classroom for like 7 years. And my goal when I worked with my students was they need to have fun, because you only learn and you only innovate and you only retain information when you are learning. You take risks when you feel safe to, and you learn. And that is all wrapped up in fun. So that is something I prioritize throughout this whole process.
That's amazing. I totally agree with everything being said. I love the journey that you and Walla have gone together. You just handing it over and kind of letting them see where they go. Pat, I'd like to hop over to you because I enjoy the kind of the way that you look back on your relationship with Allende. From your perspective, how did it feel kind of handing over your script, someone who you were passionate to work with? How did it feel kind of giving it over them and watching them take hold of your universe and adapting it in the way that they did?
So to this day, anytime he's working on something, I'm like, let me see what it looks like. I don't care if it's ready. I want to see it now. You know, like, I'm excited to see what he's cooking. Even if it's just a sketch, I'm like, no, show it to me. And, you know, I think he gets a kick out of it, definitely. But for me, when he first read the script, before, you know, he agreed to work with me, he enjoyed it. He loved it. He was really excited about it. And for me, that meant a lot, because I believe it's one thing to have an artist who, you know, just kind of brings your vision to life, but it's another thing to have an artist who genuinely cares and appreciates the vision that you're putting on paper. And so for him to say, no, I like this, I can see this going somewhere, like, I can do this. Okay, I trust you now. And so for me to hand that off to him, I didn't have any worry. You know, I already saw your portfolio. I know that you're talented. So, like, now, you know, let's go have fun. Let's get crazy. And so I had no worries. I had no doubts. And whenever he would show it to me, he would always exceed my expectations. So it was beautiful, and it still is beautiful. You know, every time I hand him a script or a storyboard, and he comes back, you know, with his own interpretation of things, I'm like, this is beautiful. You know, we really are, you know, just working together.
Oh, that's amazing. And for you, Tashi, I know you have a lot of artists, different artists that work on different projects within Midnight. But for you, I guess I'll ask specifically about The Gray, because I know The Gray is your comic book baby. How did it feel handing over your script for that to the artist who's currently working on it?
It was good. That was actually one of the examples I was going to use too. I was going to use 3, but we'll start with The Gray. And honestly, that allows me to give one of my things about being excited about the artwork is you get it back, and there's this feeling of my words just came to life through pictures. And it's a different feeling from the stage and from being on the stage and being in front of the camera. It's a wholly different feeling from that. It's interesting. But at the same time, you have to curve your excitement a little bit and pay attention to what exactly was drawn and make sure that it is what you were looking for, in a sense. Like, because it looks so good and you're so excited, sometimes you miss little things that got left out. So say you wrote a page that has 5 panels and specific things were happening in those panels, and so you're so excited to see the art that you miss out on the fact that there's 4 panels and there's some action missing that you wrote in there. And when you go back and after the letterer gives it back, you realize, hold on a second, something's missing here that I put in the story. Crap. And now it's done. Now you can maneuver, make it work. We've done that before. But then you have to remember, this is where being able to work with your artist comes in handy too. Be able to have that communication, be like, hey, don't forget, I put this here. I really do want to make sure this comes across, that it's drawn the way I set it up. We always give our artists input as well. So if you think there's something better, just let us know. And we'll talk about it and be like, oh, you know what? Yeah, that does work better. And that's where like the artist for the unbeloved is really good. Like he said, it's great to have an artist that's really invested in your story. It's the artist for the unbeloved. He grew up with the folk tales that are being told in that story. So he knows the story that Lloyd's pulling from. So he always has suggestions and input and thoughts about, well, this art could do this, or this could do this, or it might make more sense if we did this. And honestly, most of the time we go with what his suggestion, because it's usually always great. So it's that thing. It's like there's the great part of people who are really invested in your story and they just know how to make it better. And honestly, at this point, sometimes with Unbeloved, we just let him, if he feels, we're like, if you feel like something fits better there, just go ahead and do it. Do it. And then there's the other side where you have to be a little more communicative with the artist, but the artist is still great. And it's just the perfect artist for the story. So there's always two sides.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I wanted to ask all of you this, and we'll start with you, Patrick. What do you think are the qualities that are within your current artist, Allende? What are the qualities that he possesses that makes him a great partner for your comic book writing experience?
For me personally, I think it's the fact that he's a teacher. And I mean, like literal sense, like he's like a tennis coach, and so he's used to educating people, or trying to learn things. But in this medium specifically, it's dope because I come in as a writer and all I see is, hey, I want you to draw this, in this particular panel. But for him, it's like, okay, this is a lot going on. Can we possibly break these panels up, because you don't want your panel to be too condensed? So with him, he actually helped me to become more of a professional in the medium and learn how to better write my panels out or write my script out. So I think that's the beautiful thing about our relationship. I'm always learning from him just about how to be better. And when I could be better, we could both be great. Ultimately, the product ends up being a lot better. My goal was to be as good of a writer as he is an artist. And I think that it's iron sharpening iron. And he's really done a great job in just helping me become better. And so nothing else, he's a great teacher, whether he knows it or not. I'm always a fly on the wall. And that's why I'm always picking his brain and annoying him, because when he's drawing, I'm learning.
I love that. For you, Tashi, what are some of the qualities of your artists across your series that you think makes them great for the comic book making process?
First off, can I say I think God Punch is actually very well written. It's a very good story. But I think I'm gonna go to the soul artist, because he's one of our more like on staff artists. Like he's officially like our lead artist. He is another one that's really excited for the story all the time, and he's really good to work with now that he was in a situation when we first started working with him, but things are doing a lot better now, and he's very consistent, and he's another one who gives input. And like I said before, he's really perspective and color is really his bag. And so when it comes to, like he said, paneling, he gets it when you write it. And he does, again, he's like, well, was this kind of like, he always has questions. Did you want it like this? Or maybe did you want it a little more like this instead? And it's like, you know what? That's a good point. So there's a panel in Soul issue 3 that was actually drawn 2 different ways. And we still have the fully colored version of the other way it was drawn. because he did both of them for us to give us options. And I feel like that's, and we paid him for both those pages too. We paid him for the black and white version of the first one. He colored it because he was just so excited. And so I think that really speaks to how well we all have been working together, just to be able to be on that kind of level where he's excited to just do something like that because he believes in the project. Even Lloyd's birthday picture with him with the pencil, he drew that.
Oh, nice.
Just
We love
loves working with us.
Yeah, we love an excited artist. That's half the fun of making comics, is everyone excited to see the end product. And then for you, Robbie, what makes your artist team? What are some qualities that makes them amazing for the comic book manga making process?
I would say, with Walla in particular, we are actually both very much opposites in many ways, but in the creative sense, we are both very detailed about certain things, and Walla's attention to detail when it comes to like lighting and how lighting hits a character or where the source of light is coming from. I've had times where Walla did a panel for me of Clarabelle just walking into a room and talking about like needing to pay attention to make sure that what you asked for is done. I've had to make it a rule that like I wait a couple days before I give any feedback because I have to just take it all in. And I was just looking at the rug. I was stuck on the rug because there were so many little details on the rug itself. Walla has an immaculate eye for detail, and I feel that in a way that similarity between us makes us work very well because I'll give Walla like a vision board for a character, and Walla will design the character, and we'll both look at it, and both at the same time we'll type, and we'll both say, "Oh, we need to lower the eyebrows." We'll be like, "Oh, you read my mind." Be like, "Likewise." It's a weird synchronicity that we have. And then when it comes to Ali, I say Ali is very good with like foundational character design. So most people don't know. I had my collection of what I wanted Clarabelle to look like. Ali is the one who put Clarabelle together, and then Walla's the one who tweaked. And then when I looked at it, I then asked for some refinements. And Ali's ability to design characters and make them each look so drastically different. I think Walla's good with the details. Ali is good with putting the people together. And so you add that all together, and we have this wonderful cocktail. And then Walla loves to be challenged. This is another thing. I don't want to ramble too much, but like Walla, I've had times where I'll say, you know, I like this shot, but I want the light to hit this water a certain way so that you get a certain silhouette in the water. And Walla will be like, okay. And we'll come back and we'll do just that. And Walla said to me, like, I wouldn't have drawn the water like that if you hadn't asked for it. So I challenge Walla. Walla enjoys it. But then Walla challenges me to, as you said before, become just as good a writer to keep up to par with that. And then I guess the last part is Walla's perspective, not just with like the characters in space, but literally the orientation of the panels. Walla one day sat down and said, oh, like I sit down and I like visualize the panels, and then sometimes I'll draw a spiral and I'll draw the panels like around the shape of the spiral. And when I looked, I saw exactly what they were saying. Like every panel was like oriented around this invisible spiral on the page. And if you didn't know the spiral was the technique, you would see it, but you wouldn't understand what you were seeing, or you wouldn't pick up on it. And so it's that desire to just be creative in a different sense. I think that's really their skill as well, pushing the boundaries.
Absolutely. And just a recap, some of the things that you guys pointed out, being a great teacher, that iron sharpening iron that you were talking about, Patrick, someone who's not afraid to take on challenges, like Robbie was saying, also someone's excited and about the creative process, like Otashi was saying. These are definitely great if you're looking for someone, if you have a project. I know the demographics of people watching this might be different, but if you're in high school or if you're in early college and you're like, man, I've got this crazy idea, find someone who's as passionate about your project as you are, someone who's not afraid to tell you no. I'm not sure at what point of day you've seen this panel or not, but in a previous panel we talked about sometimes depending on who's looking at your story. Sometimes people tell you no, like this can't be done, or that's not a great idea. Finding someone also in your creative process who's not afraid to be like, you know what, maybe not, maybe maybe the earth can't do that, maybe people can't do that. That's something you should look at as well. And which brings me to my next question for you guys. Has there ever been a time in which your artist has told you no, we can't do that? And how did you guys work through that process? Or has that ever been an experience where you've had an artist kind of be like, maybe we could try this instead, maybe no? Anybody? No order here.
Maybe Pam. I would have to ask Lloyd on that one though, because that's the manga. That's all him.
No, you're good.
I don't think there's been a time when Yende said no. I think there's been, I guess, like teachable moments where, you know, I would write out a scene, you know, for a panel, and he's like, well, okay, we can't do this because it's not going to flow well. So let me explain to you why and why I have to break it up. And that's probably as close as, you know, we've gotten to that. But I'm a firm believer, and I have confidence in every member of my team, and I will look you in the face, in the camera, and say, there's absolutely nothing that Allende can't do. I believe in him with every fiber of my being, and if I ask him to do it, he can do it. So, you know, I believe in him wholeheartedly and his talent.
Shout out to Allende. He can do anything.
He can do anything. Shout out to my brother. Love you.
I would say I'd have to agree that Walla has not overtly said no. There have been times where I will ask for like with Ren, the character Ren that we showed on our Instagram account. One time when we were designing Ren, I said, okay, this is how I want it to look. And something small, like I said, can you make his pants a little bit longer? Because it bothers me that I can see his ankles under his pants, just something like that. And Walla was like, but the reason why we did that is because of contrast. Because when he's colored in, you know, you want that uniformity, but with the manga, the black and white situation, you want that contrast. So Walla would explain to me like, oh, it's better if we do this because of that. I feel there have been times where I'll look at something and I'll feel like, does this humorous point hit enough? Do we need something else to further explain to make sure that it's clear? And Walla or Ali will say, I think it works. Walla's very big on allocation of panel space according to like passage of time or emphasis of action. So I've had times where I'll say, can we do like a small inset panel here of this? And Walla will say, we can, but it wouldn't quite make sense here. Maybe we can do this instead. And so we typically work around that. It's never been just like an overt, like, no, shoot you down type thing. It's typically been like educational opportunity for me to learn, and vice versa too, because I bring like a cinematic perspective. So
Absolutely. And which brings me to just my final question here. We've talked a lot about different aspects of working with artists, finding your artist, that moment where you started working together to now you guys have some amazing series in the works. If you were to give tips to new creators who are in the process of looking for an artist, maybe 2 or 3 tips from everybody, what tips would you give to new creators looking to find an artist for their project?
I can think of 3. The first and most important is don't settle. I had to get a whole book redone because I settled the first time, and then I realized, you know what, I shouldn't have. This is not what I was looking for. Absolutely not what I was looking for. But because they met the parameters of what I was looking for in an artist, because I wanted a Black woman, I said, fine. And it was not at all what I wanted. Even on the retry, when it was like, you got to redraw that because that's not how the character looks. That's not the character skin tone. You colored them too light. They're darker than that. This isn't quite how that was supposed to be. It just still didn't work. So don't settle because you think you have to get it out. Like I think we've said all throughout the time we've been on here, communicate. Be communicative with your artists. Let them know what you want and listen to them in return. And then, of course, I'm just going to go back to the other thing and respect the artists. Respect the artists, their process, and their prices.
Absolutely. Let's do Pat. Any tips that you would provide to folks looking to find an artist for their project?
Definitely. Just to piggyback off of what you said, 100% agree with everything. I think maybe the one thing that I guess a lot of people wouldn't think about is just chemistry. Finding someone that you actually enjoy working with, because you are going to be talking and spending a lot of time with this individual, So find somebody that you enjoy working with. Find somebody that enjoys working with you. I mean, of course, everything is never just going to be, 100% great all the time. But find someone that you can go through those good times and bad times with. Because if you're signing up for this, you're signing up, for a brand new type of relationship, So just find someone that you can work well with. And chemistry is important.
And for you, Robbie, any tips that you'd provide?
I think, took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say the relationship that you build with your artist, it makes all the difference. You understand their communication style and understand where you can meet in the middle. You see how literally, we were talking about this the other day, like literally yesterday. The artists were like, yeah, but like you're a talker. The artists are like not talkers. People like, they're very like, I am not kidding when I say my meeting with Walla was like, yeah, sure. Okay. Like what, but like, find that person that you can meet halfway and you can have that kind of a rapport, build trust and build relationship. Part of why Walla and I are able to work together is because Walla trusts me and Walla trusts my vision. Trust matters the most with that relationship, because when your artists trust your vision, they're willing to take risks and they're willing to try a little bit more. When they don't, they'll do it, but I feel like it just shows when they don't trust or when they don't like. I feel maybe I'm just sensitive, but I notice a difference when that rapport is there and when that trust is there. So build trust between you and your artist.
No, I definitely agree. You can tell when your artist is a little hesitant to take those risks on your project, for sure.
Yeah.
And my last question, because I forgot to ask this earlier. When finding an artist, everybody found their artists a little bit differently. What platforms would you suggest, or what ways would you guys suggest in finding an artist?
Instagram.
Instagram.
Yeah. We started on Fiverr and definitely found the manga artists on Fiverr, and our letterer. But other than that, it's been Instagram and word of mouth.
Yeah, for me, I ended up finding one on. I found Yende, or Yende found me on Twitter, or X or whatever. So that I might recommend that. I know that Shonen Jump, they typically do like the contest every year. So you can kind of look at the submissions as well. So, if you see something you like, there's no problem, no issue reaching out to one of those artists to see if they're interested in, doing, some collaboration work. So that's another avenue also. But yeah, so for me personally, me and Yende, we connected on Twitter, and that's what we've been ever since.
We did find one artist on Twitter once, so we don't have a Twitter.
It can be a little bit, I will say this, is a lot of people will say, I know the perfect way to find an artist. I assure you they are not being very truthful to you. Finding an artist is a very, very, it's a journey, it's an odyssey. And I don't mean that to be hyperbolic. Finding an artist that's going to match your vision is something that you should take seriously, and it's going to take some time. Some other suggestions I have from just my experience in the industry is you can try Facebook groups. Artists love to be in Facebook groups. There are artists like websites, like some DeviantArt and ArtStation are still pretty reliable places to go and find artists. All those little artist websites, you can also look up artist social media. I think there's one called Kara that's kind of popular and things of that nature. Go wherever the artist be. Artists are kind of like out there in the world like everybody else. And once you find your artist, I guess my last question, because this is such a good, this is the one thing we didn't really hit on too much. When you approached your artist, how did you approach your artist? Anybody want to start? It's okay.
And they came to me. I don't have a dog in the fight.
Oh, that's right. All right.
He said, "Hey, I heard you're looking for a manga artist. This is what I could do." I was like, "Yeah, I like this guy. Like, come on, let's do this." You know, this is it.
And then, Robbie, if I'm not mistaken, you said Walla. They found you as well. Is that correct? Or
my assistant. So with my company, we were trying to just build a network of artists, and Walla was in that bunch. So I think I feel like I had seen Walla before, and I pointed him out to my assistant. But my assistant gathered them all, and I just went down the list and scheduled Zoom meetings. So yes.
Okay. And then Tashi, you're a part on us upon your wisdom. How did you connect with, like, what was your process of reaching out to the artist?
I will say we have had some artists reach out to us, but we haven't used any of them just yet. Other than that, for Fiverr, because it's Fiverr, you usually just go and you inquire about the gig, and then you go from there. For anyone else, it's usually, a very polite, "Hi, how are you? Love your work. Would love to know your rates." And then you go on and you build the rest of the relationship from there. Sometimes you might not get an answer. Move on.
That is true. Well, thank you everyone for your time today. I am so appreciative. One more go around. Do you guys mind plugging yourselves? Tell us where we can find you, what books or projects you have out, and just let us know what's going on with you, where we can find you online.
So our website is www.studiomaho.com. That's MAHO. You can find all of our socials there, honestly. Right now, we are currently in the process of finishing up our latest chapter of Blade Titans before we go ahead and take God Punch Chapter 4 off of hiatus. We are also working on the God Punch short film as well. So that is also in production. So, that's where you can find us, www.studiomaho.com. And if you're an artist listening to this, we are also hiring assistants. So make sure you reach out to us.
Anyone interested in seeing the Seven Kingdom, keeping up to date with us, can go to www.rpxmediaproduction.com/the7th Kingdom, the Seventh Kingdom. You can find us on Instagram, the_7th_kingdom, and that has a slew of links in our link in bio as well.
And of course, you can always find us at www.midnightcomics.org, which also has all our socials on it, but you can find us on socials at Midnight X Comics everywhere except for Facebook and YouTube, where it's just Midnight Comics.
Awesome. And thank you guys for tuning into this panel. And we'll see you for the rest of the day for the Ink and Panels Day. Woo! I don't even know. I don't know. I just be saying stuff, y'all. I'll see y'all soon.